Lydia Moonwhisper sat in the cold metal chair and tried not to look at the clock on the wall. Her daughter Luna swung her legs back and forth, making her small shoes tap against the chair. Her son Kai slumped down low, pulling his hood over his pointed ears. He was 15, and did not want anyone to see that he was an elf. The waiting room smelled like cleaning chemicals and fear. Other people sat around them, all hoping for jobs. Most were humans, or the big rock-like Koranes. Lydia was the only elf, in the room. She could feel the other people looking at her and whispering. "Mom, how much longer?" Luna asked in a small voice. She was 7 years old and had been to too many job interviews already. "Soon, baby," Lydia said. She smoothed down Luna's silver hair, which was just like her own. Both children had gotten their father's green eyes, but everything else came from her elf side. A door opened and a voice called out, "Lydia Moonwhisper!" She stood up and walked toward the office. The Centauri manager had 4 eyes and blue skin. He looked at her papers without really reading them. Lydia had been the chief engineer on 3 different elf ships before her world's economy crashed. She could fix anything that flew through space, but none of that seemed to matter anymore. "So you worked on elf ships," the manager said. His voice was flat and bored. "Yes, sir. I have 15 years of experience with warp drives, life support, systems, and quantum engines. I can read schematics in 12 different languages, and how do I know you won't just leave without warning?" The manager cut her off. "Everyone knows elves are not reliable. They disappear when things get hard." Lydia felt her face get hot. "Sir, I have never left a job without proper notice. My work records show we have decided to go with someone more suitable for our needs," the manager said. He did not even look at her anymore. "Thank you for your time." Lydia walked back to the waiting room feeling like someone had punched her in the stomach. This was the 15th job interview in 3 months. Every time it was the same story. No one wanted to hire an elf. No one wanted to hire a single mother. And definitely no one wanted to hire an elf single mother with 2 children. "Let's go," she told her kids. They walked through the busy halls of Kepler Station. The place was huge, with shops and restaurants and thousands of people from dozens of different worlds. Ships came and went all day, carrying cargo and passengers to every corner of the galaxy. But none of those ships wanted Lydia. Their small apartment was in the lower levels, where the air recyclers were loud and the lights flickered sometimes. Lydia tried not to think about the rent that was due in 6 days. She tried not to think about the food that was almost gone. She tried not to think about the refugee camps where other elves lived now, sleeping on hard floors and eating charity meals. "Mom?" Luna tugged on her coat. "Are we going to have to live with Uncle Theron?" Uncle Theron lived in Camp 7, where 3,000 elves crowded into a space meant for 500. Lydia had visited him once and sworn she would never let her children end up there. "No, baby, we'll figure something out." But she did not know what. Her savings account had 23 credits left. Her engineering tools were worth more than everything else she owned, but she could not sell them. Without tools, she could never work again. They stopped at a food court to buy the cheapest meal they could find. Kai ate his protein bar without talking. Luna played with her food instead of eating it. Lydia watched other families around them, families with jobs and homes and futures. "Excuse me, miss?" Lydia looked up to see a human woman standing by their table. She was maybe 50 years old, with gray hair pulled back and clothes that looked practical instead of fancy. Her hands were rough from real work. "You wouldn't happen to be Lydia Moonwhisper, would you?" Lydia's heart started beating faster. Was this security? Had someone reported her for something? "Yes, that's me. I'm Amy Chen, captain of the cargo ship Starlight Runner." The woman sat down without being invited. "I heard about you from Captain Morris. He said you were the best engineer he ever worked with." Captain Morris had been Lydia's last employer before the elf worlds fell apart. She had not heard from him in 2 years. "I need an engineer," Amy continued. "My ship is old and needs someone who can think fast and work with whatever parts we can find. The pay isn't great, but it's steady work. Room and board included for you and your kids." Lydia stared at her. "You want to hire me, even though I'm an elf?" Amy shrugged. "I don't care what species you are. I don't care that you have kids. I care about one thing. Can you keep my ship flying and my crew alive?" "Yes," Lydia said quickly. "Yes, I can do that." "Good. We leave tomorrow morning. Dock 7, Level C. Be there at 0800 hours with whatever you can carry. Amy stood up to leave, then turned back. One more thing. My crew might not like you at first. Prove them wrong. After Amy left, Lydia sat there feeling dizzy. Luna was bouncing in her seat with excitement. Even Kai looked up from his food. Mom, does this mean we get to live on a real spaceship? Luna asked. It means we get a chance, Lydia said. She looked at her children and felt something she had not felt in months. Hope. That night, they packed everything they owned into 3 small bags. Lydia held her engineering tools and remembered the first time her father had given them to her. He had said that good tools and honest work could take a person anywhere in the galaxy. Maybe he was right. The next morning, they stood on the dock looking at the Starlight Runner. The ship was old and scarred, with patches welded over holes and paint worn off in places. It was not the newest ship or the prettiest ship, but it was theirs now. Amy Chen came down the loading ramp with 3 other humans behind her. They all looked at Lydia and her children with curious eyes. Welcome aboard, Amy said. Let's see what you can do. Lydia picked up her bags and walked toward her new life. Behind her, Luna skipped up the ramp like she was going to a party. Even. Kai walked a little straighter. For the first time in months, they were not begging for a chance. Someone had given them one. Now Lydia had to prove she deserved it. The inside of the Starlight Runner was bigger than Lydia expected. The halls were narrow but clean, and everything looked well cared for even if it was old. Amy led them through the ship, showing them where they would sleep and eat and work. This is your cabin, Amy said, opening a door. It's small, but it has 2 bunks and a fold-out bed. There's a tiny bathroom, too. Luna ran inside and climbed up to the top bunk. This is mine, she called out. Kai took the bottom bunk without saying anything, but Lydia could tell he was pleased. The galley is down the hall, Amy continued. Help yourself to food anytime. We all take turns cooking, so I hope you know how to make something besides protein bars. Lydia smiled. I can cook. Good. Now let me introduce you to the crew. They went to the bridge where 3 humans were working. The first was a young woman with short red hair who was checking navigation charts. This is Kate Morrison, our pilot, Amy said. Kate, meet Lydia, our new engineer. Kate looked up and nodded. Heard you worked on elf ships. Those use quantum drives, right? Never worked on one of those. They're not so different from standard drives, Lydia said. Just more efficient. The second crew member was older, maybe 40, with dark skin and quick fingers that danced over a communication panel. Lisa Park. Communications, Amy said. She keeps us in touch with the universe. Welcome aboard, Lisa said. She seemed friendly but careful, like she was waiting to see what kind of person Lydia really was. The third woman was younger than the others, with strong arms and scars on her hands. She was cleaning a weapon that looked military. Maria Santos, Security and Weapons, Amy said. Maria keeps the bad guys away from us. Maria just nodded. Her eyes studied Lydia like she was looking for weaknesses. Okay, people, back to work, Amy said. Lydia, let me show you the engine room. They went down 2 levels to the heart of the ship. The engine room was cramped and hot, filled with the steady hum of the reactor. Pipes and cables ran everywhere, and Lydia could see where repairs had been made with whatever parts were available. She's old, but she's reliable, Amy said, patting a control panel. 40-year-old transport design, military surplus. I've had her for 12 years now. Lydia walked around the room, looking at everything. The fusion reactor was older than she was, but it was running smooth and clean. The quantum drive was a newer addition, probably installed in the last few years. Someone had done good work connecting it to the old systems. Who was your last engineer? She asked. Fellow named Pete Rodriguez. Good man. But he retired to a farm on New Texas. Said he was tired of space. Amy opened a panel and showed Lydia, a mess of wires. Right before he left, the gravity generator in Cargo Bay 3 started acting up. We've been ignoring it, but it's getting worse. Can I look at it? Sure. But don't feel like you have to fix it today. Take your time. Learn the ship first. But Lydia was already walking toward the cargo bay. She had spent too many months doing nothing. It felt good to have a real problem to solve. Cargo Bay 3 was full of containers waiting to be delivered. The gravity generator was a big gray box mounted on the wall, humming loudly and making the metal around it vibrate. Lydia touched the panel and felt the irregular pulse that meant trouble. "How long has it been doing this?" she asked. 3 weeks, maybe 4, Amy said. Lydia opened her tool bag and pulled out a scanner. The readings made her frown. "This is going to fail soon, maybe in a few days. How long to fix it?" Most engineers would need 2 days and a full parts order from the station. Lydia looked around the cargo bay, then back at the generator. "But I think I can do it faster." She spent 20 minutes studying the system, tracing cables and checking connections. The problem was not what she expected. The generator itself was fine, but the power coupling was wearing out. The vibration was making it worse every day. "I need some things from other parts of the ship," she told Amy. "Nothing expensive, just spare parts that aren't being used." Amy raised an eyebrow. "You want to cannibalize my ship to fix my ship?" "Trust me." For the next 4 hours, Lydia worked. She took a power coupling from an unused weapons mount and modified it to fit the gravity generator. She rerouted some cables through a different path that would not vibrate as much. She even found a way to make the whole system run more efficiently, by changing how the power flowed. Luna and Kai came to watch her work. Luna asked a million questions about everything. Kai just watched quietly, but Lydia could tell he was learning. "Why are you doing it that way, Mom?" Luna asked. "Because the old way fights against the ship's natural rhythm," Lydia explained. "But if we work with the rhythm instead, everything runs smoother." When she was done, the cargo bay was quiet. The gravity generator hummed softly instead of loudly, and the walls did not vibrate anymore. Amy tested the gravity controls. "This is running better than it has in years." "It should use 15% less power now, too," Lydia said. Word spread quickly through the ship. Kate came down to look, then Lisa, then Maria. They all seemed surprised that the noisy generator was finally quiet. "How did you do that so fast?" Kate asked. "Elf engineering," Lydia said with a small smile. "We're taught to see systems as living things instead of just machines. You have to understand what the ship wants, not just what you want." Maria crossed her arms. "That sounds like mystical nonsense." "Maybe," Lydia said, "but it works." That night at dinner, the crew was friendlier than before. Luna charmed everyone with her stories about life on the elf homeworld. Kai even talked a little about the games he liked to play. Lydia cooked a stew that her grandmother had taught her to make, using spices she had been saving for a special occasion. "This is really good," Lisa said. "What's in it?" "It's an old elf recipe. The secret is knowing when to add each ingredient. Too early, and the flavors fight each other. Too late, and they never blend." "Like engineering," Kate said. "Like everything," Lydia agreed. But the real test came 3 days later when they were carrying medical supplies to a colony world called Haven. They were flying through an empty system when Lisa's sensors started screaming. "Contact! 3 ships! Coming in fast!" Amy ran to the bridge. "Pirates?" "Vorthan raiders," Lisa confirmed. "They're demanding we stop and prepare to be boarded." Amy cursed. "Kate, can we outrun them?" "Not with this cargo load. They're flying. New interceptors." "Maria, weapons?" "We've got some defensive guns, but nothing that can take on 3 ships." Amy looked at Lydia. "Any ideas?" Lydia was already thinking. "How much power can you give me?" "What do you need?" "Everything. Shut down life support to minimum, turn off artificial gravity everywhere except the bridge, kill the lights. Give me everything the reactor can produce." "That's crazy," Maria said. "The engines can't handle that much power. They'll overload." "Not if I reroute it through the quantum drive first," Lydia said. She was already moving toward the engine room. "Trust me." Amy looked at her crew, then nodded. "Do it." The next few minutes were chaos. Lydia worked faster than she ever had in her life, changing connections and adjusting power flows while the ship shook from weapons fire. The engines started making noises that sounded dangerous, but she could feel what they needed. "More power to the quantum stabilizers," she called, over the comm. "Now cut artificial gravity to the cargo bays. Good. Now redirect life support power to the main drive." On the bridge, Kate watched her speed indicator climb higher than it had ever gone. "This is impossible. We're doing 0.95 light speed in normal space. Can the engines hold together?" Amy asked. Down in the engine room, Lydia had her hands on the main control panel, feeling the ship's heartbeat through her fingertips. The engines were screaming, but they were holding. She made tiny adjustments to keep everything balanced. They'll hold, she said. But not for long. 2 minutes, maybe 3. It was enough. They pulled away from the pirates and jumped to hyperspace before the raiders could catch up. When they dropped back to normal space near Haven Colony, the engines were still running perfectly. Kate turned around in her pilot seat. I've never seen anything like that. How did you know the engines could take it? I listened to them, Lydia said. They told me what they could handle. Maria shook her head. That's still mystical nonsense. But it's mystical nonsense that saved our lives. That night, Lydia tucked Luna into her bunk and sat with Kai while he read a book about starship design. Mom, Luna said sleepily, do you think they like us now? Lydia looked around their small cabin on their ship with their crew. For the first time in months, she felt like they belonged somewhere. I think they're starting to, she said. News traveled fast in the independent trader networks. Within a week of their escape from the Vorthon pirates, other ship captains were talking about the Starlight Runner and their amazing elf engineer. Some of the stories got bigger each time, they were told, until people said Lydia could make ships fly faster than light without quantum drives. Amy laughed when she heard the rumors. Let them talk. It's good for business. And it was good for business. Their next 3 jobs came from captains who had heard about Lydia's work. The pay was better too, because people who needed good engineering were willing to pay for it. But the attention also brought problems. Captain Hayes of the merchant ship New Horizon found them at Titan Station while they were loading supplies. He was a tall man with expensive clothes and a smile that seemed too friendly. Captain Chen, I've heard wonderful things about your engineer, he said, looking at Lydia as she checked cargo containers. I'd like to make her an offer. She's not for sale, Amy said flatly. Of course not. But everyone has a price. I could offer double her current salary, plus benefits for her children. Private tutors, the best schools in the galaxy. Lydia looked up from her scanner. The offer was tempting. Luna and Kai could have the education she had always wanted to give them, but something about Captain Hayes made her uncomfortable. Thank you, but I'm happy where I am, she said. Hayes's smile got colder. Think about it. The offer stands for now, but good opportunities don't last forever. After he left, Kate shook her head. That guy gives me the creeps. His ship has been involved in some questionable deals. What kind of deals? Lydia asked. The kind where cargo manifests don't match what's actually in the containers, Maria said. If you know what I mean. 2 days later, they got a message that changed everything. The mining colony on Valdris Prime was in trouble. Their main computer systems had failed, and without them, the environmental controls would collapse within a week. 50,000 colonists would die. They've tried everything, Amy read from the message. 6 different tech teams have failed. The electromagnetic storms on that planet fry any electronic equipment within hours. Why are they calling us? Kate asked. Because they heard we have an engineer who can do impossible things, Amy said, looking at Lydia. Lydia studied the technical reports the colonists had sent. The planet's magnetic field was unstable, creating electrical storms that destroyed circuits and fried computer brains. Standard shielding could not handle it. I need to see the original designs for their systems, she said, and any geological surveys of the planet. What she found made her think of stories her grandmother used to tell. The planet's magnetic field moved in patterns that reminded her of something from old elf legends. Her people had once built cities on worlds like this, before they discovered quantum drives and moved to the stars. I think I can help them, she told Amy. But I'll need some special materials. What kind of materials? Resonance crystals, the kind we use in elf meditation chambers? Maria frowned. Those aren't engineering supplies, they're religious artifacts. On my world, there's no difference, Lydia said. We believe that technology and spirituality are the same thing. They found the crystals at a specialty shop on Titan Station. The shopkeeper was an old elf who looked surprised to see Lydia with a human crew. These crystals are for harmony and balance, he said in the old elf language. Not for machines. Maybe machines need harmony and balance too, Lydia replied in the same language. The trip to Valdris Prime took 3 days. As they got closer to the planet, their instruments started going crazy. The magnetic storms were worse than the reports had said. "How are we supposed to land in this?" Kate asked, fighting to keep the ship steady. "Very carefully," Lydia said. She was already working on modifications to their shielding. "Give me 2 hours." She worked with the resonance crystals, building them into the ship's defensive systems in ways that made no scientific sense. But as they entered the planet's atmosphere, their electronics stayed stable while the storms raged around them. The mining colony was built inside a mountain to protect it from the worst weather. The colonists who met them looked tired and scared. Their leader was a human woman named Director Stone. "We've tried everything," Director Stone said. "The storms get worse every day. Our backup systems are failing one by one." Lydia looked at the colony's computer center and felt overwhelmed. Dozens of burned-out processors and fried circuit boards covered the tables. The main computer core was dark and silent. "How long do we have?" she asked. 3 days, maybe 4. After that, the air recyclers stop working." Lydia spent the rest of that day studying the failed equipment and the planet's magnetic patterns. Luna helped by organizing the broken parts while Kai took notes. The rest of the crew helped where they could. But this was beyond their knowledge. That night, Lydia sat alone in their temporary quarters, staring at readings that made no sense. The magnetic storms followed patterns, but not any patterns she recognized from standard engineering texts. They were more like music, or poetry, or dance. Then she remembered her grandmother's stories about the old days, when elves lived in harmony with unstable worlds. They had not fought against the natural forces. They had learned to work with them. The next morning, she started over with a completely different approach. Instead of trying to shield the computers from the magnetic storms, she would teach them to dance with the storms. "That's crazy," Director Stone said when Lydia explained her plan. "You can't synchronize a computer system with random magnetic fluctuations." "They're not random," Lydia said. "They're just following rules we don't understand yet." She worked for 18 hours straight, rebuilding the computer core with resonance crystals woven throughout the circuits. Each crystal was tuned to a different frequency, creating a harmony that matched the planet's magnetic song. Kate brought her food and made her eat. Lisa monitored the planet's magnetic field and called out changes as they happened. Maria kept watch for equipment failures that could put Lydia in danger. "The storm intensity is increasing," Lisa reported. "Whatever you're doing, it needs to work soon." Lydia made the final connections and held her breath. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the computer core began to glow with a soft light that pulsed in rhythm with the planet's magnetic field. One by one, the colony's systems came back online. Air recyclers hummed to life. Lights turned on. Water pumps started working again. "Impossible," Director Stone whispered. "The storm should have fried everything by now." "It would have if we were fighting against it," Lydia said. "But we're not fighting. We're dancing." The colonists cheered and cried and hugged each other. 50,000 people would live because an elf engineer had remembered old stories and believed that harmony was stronger than resistance. But their success came with a cost. Word spread quickly through the galaxy, and not everyone was happy about it. The Hegemony Corporation, which controlled most of the galaxy's shipping and manufacturing, did not like independent operators getting too much attention. 3 days. After they left Valdris Prime, Amy got a message from Hegemony headquarters. It was an offer for a job that would pay more than they usually made in a year. "It's a simple cargo run," Amy read. "Transport agricultural equipment to the Kepler frontier. 1 week's work for 6 months' pay." "That's too good to be true," Kate said. "I know, but the money would set us all up for life." Lydia looked at the job details and felt something cold in her stomach. The destination was a system where the hegemony had been having disputes with local governments, and the cargo weight didn't match what agricultural equipment should weigh. "I think we should take it," Maria said. "We've earned a big payday." "I don't know," Lisa said. "Something feels wrong about this." Amy looked at Lydia. "What do you think?" Lydia thought about her children, who deserved security and education and a future. She thought about the crew, who had given her a chance when no one else would. She thought about Captain Hayes and his too friendly smile, and about corporations that saw people as problems to be solved. "I think we should be very careful," she said. But she also knew they would probably take the job. The money was too good to pass up, and they all had reasons to want financial security. As they prepared to leave for the Kepler frontier, Lydia packed her tools and tried to ignore the feeling that they were flying into a trap. Outside their porthole, the stars looked the same as always, but something was different now. Something was coming that would test everything they had built together. In her bunk, Luna played with a toy ship, while Kai read a book about galactic history. They looked happy and safe, and Lydia wanted to keep them that way. But she had a feeling that keeping them safe was about to become much harder than fixing broken engines or dancing with magnetic storms. Some problems could not be solved with engineering. Some fights could not be won with harmony. Sometimes the only choice was to stand up and fight back, no matter what the cost. The Starlight Runner turned toward the Kepler frontier, carrying its crew toward a future none of them could imagine. The cargo containers looked innocent enough. 47 large boxes marked agricultural equipment, terraforming supplies. The shipping manifests were perfect, with all the right stamps and signatures, but Lydia's engineering scanner told a different story. "Amy, you need to see this," she said quietly, showing her captain the readings. Amy looked at the scanner display and her face went pale. "Those aren't farming tools. No, they're weapon components. Military grade. The power. Signatures match orbital bombardment systems. They were 3 days into hyperspace, heading for the Kepler frontier. The job had seemed too good to be true, and now they knew why. The Hegemony Corporation had hired them to transport weapons to a war zone. Amy called an emergency crew meeting in the galley. Luna and Kai stayed in their cabin, but Lydia could hear Luna asking her brother why everyone sounded worried. "We have a problem," Amy said, showing the scanner readings to Kate, Lisa, and Maria. "We're carrying weapons, not farming equipment." Kate whistled low. "If we deliver these, people are going to die." "A lot of people," Lisa added. She had been monitoring news from the Kepler frontier. "The Hegemony has been trying to take over the independent colonies out there. This equipment could level entire cities." Maria crossed her arms. "So what do we do? If we don't deliver, the Hegemony will blacklist us. We'll never work again. And if we do deliver, we're helping them commit mass murder," Amy said. The crew sat in silence for a long moment. Outside the ship, hyperspace swirled past in patterns of blue and silver. They were still 2 days from their destination, but every minute brought them closer to an impossible choice. "We could dump the cargo," Kate suggested. "Make it look like an accident." "The Hegemony would never believe that," Lisa said. "They'd hunt us down." "Let them try," Maria said. "I'd rather fight than be part of genocide." Amy looked at each of her crew members. "This isn't just about us. If we cross the Hegemony, they'll come after our families too. Lydia, your children could get hurt." Lydia thought about Luna and Kai, safe in their cabin, playing games and reading books. She thought about the life she was trying to build for them. Then she thought about other children on the frontier worlds who would die if these weapons were delivered. "We dumped the cargo," she said. "Are you sure?" Amy asked. "This means we'll be running for the rest of our lives." "I'm sure." The vote was unanimous. They would jettison the weapons in deep space and face whatever consequences came next. But getting rid of the cargo was only the beginning of their problems. 2 hours after they dumped the containers, Lisa's communication board lit up with an urgent message. "It's from Hegemony Command," she said. "They want a status report." Amy took the call. The face on the screen belonged to Director Walsh, a cold woman with gray hair and calculating eyes. "Captain Chen, our tracking systems show you've deviated from course. Explain." "Minor navigation error," Amy lied smoothly. "We're back on track. Now. See that you are. The cargo you're carrying is extremely valuable. Any problems would be most unfortunate." The threat was clear. After the call ended, the crew knew they had maybe a day before the Hegemony discovered what they had done. "We need proof," Amy said. "Evidence of what they were really shipping. Otherwise, it's our word against theirs." "I saved some of the scanner. Data," Lydia said. "But that's not enough. We need shipping records, communication logs, something that proves this was intentional. Lisa's fingers danced over her keyboard. I might be able to hack into their systems remotely. The communication array they used to contact us might still be connected. For the next 6 hours, Lisa worked to break through hegemony security systems. Lydia helped by building signal amplifiers that could reach further into corporate networks. Kate kept them moving through hyperspace on a course that would confuse any pursuit. Maria prepared their weapons, even though they all knew they're small. Ship couldn't fight a corporate fleet. Finally, Lisa found what they needed. Got it. Shipping manifests, payment records, even recorded conversations between hegemony executives. They've been doing this for months, using independent traders to move weapons to conflict zones. Download everything, Amy ordered. We're going to broadcast this to every news network in the galaxy, but before they could transmit the data, their hyperspace engines shut down. The ship dropped back to normal space in an empty system, far from any help. What happened? Amy demanded. Lydia was already running toward the engine room. Remote shutdown command. Someone hacked our navigation system. On the bridge, Kate's instruments showed 3 large ships approaching fast. Hegemony corporate security. Military-class cruisers. Amy's face was grim. They found us faster than I expected. The lead cruiser opened a communication channel. Director Walsh appeared on screen again, but this time she wasn't pretending to be friendly. Captain Chen, you have committed theft of corporate property. Surrender immediately and prepare to be boarded. What theft? Amy asked innocently. We delivered your cargo as agreed. Our tracking devices show the containers were jettisoned. In deep space. You will return to collect them or face the consequences. Amy closed the channel and turned to her crew. Options? We can't outrun them, Kate said. And we can't outfight them. But we can outsmart them, Lydia said. She had an idea, but it was dangerous. I need to modify our quantum drive. If I can create a resonance cascade in their tracking systems, it might disable their ships long enough for us to escape. Might? Maria asked. It's never been tried before. The quantum fields could tear our ship apart instead. Or it could work, Amy said. Do it. Lydia ran to the engine room with her children close behind. She had told them to stay in their cabin, but Luna had refused to leave her side. Mama, what's happening? Luna asked as Lydia worked frantically on the quantum drive. Some bad people want to hurt us, Lydia said, connecting crystalline matrices to the drive core in patterns she had learned from ancient elf engineering texts. But I'm going to stop them. How? By singing to the quantum fields, Lydia said. It sounded crazy, but it was the only way she could explain what she was doing. Everything in the universe has a song, Luna. If you know the right frequency, you can make things dance together. The hegemony ships were getting closer. Warning shots lit up space around the Starlight Runner. Soon, they would be close enough to use boarding pods. Lydia, whatever you're going to do it now, Amy called over the intercom. Lydia placed her hands on the quantum drive controls. She could feel the resonance building, like a musical note that wanted to grow louder and louder. The ship began to vibrate. Everyone hold on, she announced. The quantum cascade erupted outward from their ship like an invisible shock wave. It hit the first hegemony cruiser, and every electronic system on board went dead. The second ship tried to pull away, but the cascade caught it too. The third ship managed to retreat, but its tracking systems were fried. It worked! Kate shouted from the bridge. They're dead in space! But the effort had cost them. The Starlight Runner's own systems were failing. Lights flickered. The air recyclers made strange noises, and the quantum drive itself was overloading. I can't shut it down, Lydia said, working desperately to control the cascade. The resonance is feeding back on itself. If the drive exploded, it would take them and probably the disabled hegemony ships with it. Dozens of people would die, including her own children. Then Luna stepped forward and put her small hand on the quantum drive control panel. I can hear it singing, she said. It sounds scared. Lydia stared at her daughter. Luna was only 7 years old, but she was half-elf, and elves had always been able to sense quantum fields in ways other species couldn't. What is it singing? Lydia asked. Luna closed her eyes and listened. It wants to go home. It's lost, and it wants to go home. Understanding hit Lydia like lightning. The quantum fields weren't just energy. They were alive in their own way, connected to everything in the universe. And right now, They were trapped in patterns that hurt them. Working together, mother and daughter guided the quantum cascade back to its natural state. The drive stopped overloading, the lights stopped flickering, and in the distance, the hegemony ships began to restore their systems. "Time to go," Amy said. The Starlight Runner jumped back into hyperspace, leaving the corporate security fleet behind, but everyone knew this was just the beginning. The hegemony would never stop hunting them now. "Where do we go?" Kate asked. "Everywhere," Amy said. "We broadcast this data to every news network, every government, every independent trader in the galaxy. The hegemony thinks they can silence us, but they're wrong." "They'll send everything they have after us," Maria warned. "Let them come," Lydia said. She looked at her daughter, who had helped save them all. "We're not just running anymore. We're fighting back." In the days that followed, their story spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Other independent crews came forward with similar stories. Evidence mounted that the Hegemony Corporation had been using private traders to smuggle weapons to conflict zones for years, but the corporate response was swift and vicious. Lydia's species was branded as security threats. Elves across the galaxy were arrested, detained, or simply disappeared. The message was clear. Cross the hegemony, and everyone like you would suffer. Sitting in their cabin as the ship raced through hyperspace toward an uncertain future, the plan was impossible, but it was the only chance they had. Hegemony Station Alpha orbited the gas giant Kronos like a metal moon, bristling with weapons and sensors. It was one of the most secure facilities in the galaxy, protected by 3 fleets and enough firepower to destroy a small planet. Inside its data cores lay all the evidence they needed to prove the hegemony's crimes. "There's no way we can fight our way in," Maria said, studying the station's defenses on her tactical display. "We don't fight," Amy replied. "We sneak." They had been planning for 3 weeks, ever since their story broke across the galactic news networks. The response had been mixed. Some people called them heroes, others called them terrorists. But the hegemony's brutal crackdown on elf populations had turned public opinion against the corporation. Now, they had one chance to gather enough evidence to bring down the most powerful company in the galaxy. If they failed, they would disappear into a corporate prison somewhere, and their children would grow up without them. "The station's shields are quantum phase arrays," Lydia said, reviewing the technical specifications. "Standard sensors can't penetrate them, and ships can't get through without clearance codes." "But," Amy prompted because she knew Lydia had an idea. "But Luna can sense quantum fields directly. If I modify our ship's sensors to work with her abilities, we might be able to phase through the shields without triggering the alarms." Everyone looked at Luna, who was sitting at the table with her homework tablet, drawing pictures of spaceships. She was 7 years old, and they were asking her to help them break into the most secure facility in known space. "Is it dangerous?" Kai asked. He had become very protective of his little sister since their adventures began. "Everything we do now is dangerous," Lydia said honestly. "But I think this might work. The modifications took 2 days. Lydia had to rebuild their sensor array using resonance crystals and quantum field generators that she made from spare parts. The result looked like nothing any engineer had ever built before, a hybrid of elf mysticism and human ingenuity. "This is either brilliant or completely insane," Kate said, as she watched Lydia make the final connections. "Probably both," Lydia admitted. When they approached Hegemony Station Alpha, every alarm in the galaxy seemed to be screaming about the fugitive ship Starlight Runner. But they were invisible to the station's sensors, phased just slightly out of normal space-time. "Luna, I need you to listen to the quantum fields around the station," Lydia said. "Tell me where they're weakest." Luna closed her eyes and put her hand on the modified sensor panel. "There's a quiet spot on the left side, near the bottom. The fields are sleeping there." Kate piloted them toward the coordinates Luna indicated. As they passed through the station's shields, everyone held their breath. Alarms didn't sound. Weapons didn't fire. They were inside. The docking bay Luna had guided them to was mostly empty, used for maintenance shuttles. Amy and Maria put on maintenance worker uniforms they had stolen from another station. Lisa stayed with the ship to monitor communications. Lydia and the children would wait in the cargo hold, ready to run if things went wrong. "Remember," Amy said into her communicator as she and Maria walked toward the station's main computer core. We need shipping records, communication logs, and financial transactions. Everything that proves they've been smuggling weapons. And we need it fast, Lisa added from the ship. I'm monitoring their security channels. They know something is wrong, even if they can't find us yet. The computer core was 20 levels, down in the most secure part of the station. Amy and Maria took maintenance tunnels and service elevators, avoiding the main corridors where security was heaviest. But halfway to their destination, everything went wrong. Intruder alert, announced the station's computer voice. Unknown vessel detected in Docking Bay 7. All security teams respond immediately. They found us, Lisa reported. Security teams are heading your way. Amy and Maria were trapped in a corridor between two security checkpoints. Armed guards were approaching from both directions. We need a distraction, Amy said. Back on the phone. Ship? Lydia was already working. Luna, remember when we made the quantum drive sing? Can you do that again, but bigger? How much bigger? Luna asked. Big enough to confuse every sensor on this station. What happened next would be talked about in engineering schools for generations. Luna placed her hands on the modified sensor array and reached out with her mind to touch the quantum fields that held the station together. But instead of disrupting them, she learned to speak their language. Every electronic device on Hegemony Station Alpha began to malfunction in beautiful, artistic ways. Lights flickered in patterns that looked like music. Computer screens showed swirling colors instead of data. Communication systems played random sounds that somehow formed melodies. It wasn't destruction. It was quantum poetry. What's happening? Demanded Director Walsh from the station's command center. Get me a status report. All systems are singing, ma'am, reported a confused technician. I don't know how else to describe it. In the chaos, Amy and Maria reached the computer core and plugged in their data theft device. Terabytes of information flowed through the connection. Records of weapons shipments, communications between corporate executives, financial transactions that proved the hegemony had been profiting from war for decades. Got it, Amy announced. Everything we need to bury them. But getting out was harder than getting in. Security teams were everywhere, and Luna was getting tired from maintaining the quantum disruption. I can't hold it much longer, she said, her small voice strained with effort. That's when Kai surprised everyone. Mom, what if we don't try to hide anymore? What if we tell everyone what we found? Lydia looked at her son. What do you mean? Lisa. Can broadcast, right? What if we send all the evidence to every news network in the galaxy right now while we're still here? Then it doesn't matter if they catch us. It was a 15-year-old's logic, but it was brilliant. Lisa's fingers flew over her communication controls, uploading the stolen data to hundreds of news outlets simultaneously. Within minutes, the evidence was spreading across the galaxy faster than the hegemony could stop it. This is Director Walsh, came an angry voice over the station's communication system. Attention, fugitive vessel! Surrender immediately or face destruction! This is Captain Amy Chen of the independent vessel Starlight Runner, Amy replied, her voice broadcasting to the entire galaxy through the news networks. We have evidence that the Hegemony Corporation has been smuggling weapons to conflict zones, profiting from war and committing crimes against sentient life. This evidence is now public record. The response was immediate and overwhelming. News anchors across the galaxy began reading the damning evidence on live broadcasts. Government officials called for investigations. Stock prices for Hegemony Corporation began to collapse. But the corporation's response was typically brutal. Fire on that ship, Director Walsh ordered. Maximum firepower. The station's weapons began to charge, targeting the small cargo ship that had brought down the most powerful corporation in the galaxy. That's when the cavalry arrived. This is Captain Rodriguez of the independent vessel Mountain Star, came, a new voice over the communication system. Starlight Runner, you're not alone. Dozens of ships dropped out of hyperspace around the station. Independent traders, merchant vessels, even some military ships whose crews had decided they'd had enough of corporate oppression. They had come from across the galaxy to defend the small ship that had dared to tell the truth. This is Director Walsh. All ships will disperse immediately or face corporate security action. This is Captain Singh of the free trader Bright Dawn, replied another voice. Director Walsh, your corporation is finished. Surrender now, and maybe you'll get a fair trial. The battle that followed was more symbolic than military. The hegemony's fleet was larger and better armed, but they were vastly outnumbered by ordinary people who had decided to fight back. More importantly, every moment of the conflict was broadcast live across the galaxy. In the midst of the battle, Lydia worked frantically to get their ship ready for escape. But the quantum modifications that had let them sneak in were now failing, under the stress of combat. "I can't maintain phase coherence," she reported. "We're going to become solid again, right in the middle of their firing solution." "Let me help," Luna said. She was exhausted from her earlier efforts, but she placed her hands on the quantum drive controls one more time. This time, something extraordinary happened. Instead of just Luna's voice reaching out to the quantum fields, every elf in the galaxy seemed to answer. Their combined consciousness touched the fundamental forces of space-time and made them dance. The Starlight Runner didn't just phase through the station's weapons fire, it moved between dimensions, traveling through quantum, space in ways that weren't supposed to be possible. When they rematerialized, they were safely away from the battle, surrounded by their allies. The war was over before it really began. Faced with overwhelming public opposition and a collapsing stock price, the Hegemony Corporation's board of directors ordered a ceasefire. Within hours, Director Walsh and her top executives were under arrest. 6 months later, Lydia stood in the assembly hall of the new Galactic Trade Council.